Good to see you. Welcome back. Hope you guys are all having a good day. Spending time with your family, doing the things right. One thing we need to not get too distracted with when we're out there prepping is, we got to admit it. The world's kind of falling apart these days. We've kind of not done a very good job at paying attention to the people we've put in charge of taking care of the country and the planet we live on. And because of that, we're paying for some of the consequences on that. But really wasn't all our fault. But we did have options a long time ago, and all that means is like with any other choice you make. The more you put it off, well, the harder it's going to get to get back on track, right? But it doesn't mean you can't get back on track. I always think that everybody can change, everybody can be a better version of themselves, and they can help people better, right? And that's what we need to do. These are the days that we need to put aside all of the things we bicker about. Even some of the most radical, my most radical lefties that are out there looking at us, and when I say lefties and righties, that's not in a negative connotation, but even the people that are polar opposites of I may be, and my doctor is this way, my general practitioner, the reason I love her is because her and I can sit and have a civil conversation, even with our differences. She's not really a gun person, but she can respect the reason why I am, right? And while we can discuss things back and forth, we actually come up with productive outcomes, right? Just like with my health care, which is kind of what I want in a doctor and why I have her as a doctor, even though she's a lefty, right? Because we can all get along and there's value in each way. We have to admit to ourselves that no one way is the best. It's everybody together that is the best. We've allowed ourselves to be so divided over every little thing, even in our own communities. There will be people that go, this here gun right here, which we'll talk about in a minute, this here gun sucks, there's one that's better, or no, this is the best, or that is the best. And while there may be ones to some people that are better than another, it doesn't mean that it's the best for that person, and it doesn't mean that it's the best for everyone, for the world we live in. And we have to start noticing that if we all stop bickering about that, well, we might not have even had the problems we do, right? Don't you think that's kind of what they want? Don't you think that was kind of their plan in general? I can tell you where you can find books that are written where this is actually a plan on how they gain control of countries or gain power over people, right? This is nothing new. It's happened again and again in history and society, where people that are powerful and greedy have, used these same plans, same agendas to gain power and money and power over their people, right? And the only thing that really can break that, somebody said is basically the people coming together. And when that happens, you'll always find that there's usually a big conflict when that happens before things get better. So because we've procrastinated so much, there's going to be a conflict no matter what, unless you roll over. But if you roll over, then you're looking at becoming like China, North Korea, Venezuela, and all these other countries that are rising up, but the only problem is they don't have the tools in order to really take control again, right? But they can, just not as easily. And we don't want to be in those positions where we feel even more helpless. Just imagine right now, could you imagine, as bad as things are, as high as prices are, as much of a struggle as it is to survive, that kind of thing. And when I say survive, there's a difference between what you need to be happy and what you need to survive. To be having those things, it really is. Could you just imagine if it was worse? Right? Because there are countries out there, believe it or not, we're blessed and fortunate to be born where we were and to be in the country we are in. There are countries that are far worse shape, right? But they're still out there fighting if you watch the news, and they don't want us to see that. And why would that be? Because the one thing they fear is the masses. And a lot of people out there, I saw it so many times, I see it in chats and in videos and things like that, especially live chats, people going, oh, what do you think you're going to do? In fact, they tell us to our faces, which should be offensive to everyone. Super offensive to everyone, in fact, is when they say things like, well, what are you going to do? Rise up against the government? You're going to need F-16s and tanks, right? No, that's not true. Will we have lots of casualties if that situation happened? Sure. But you can have all the F-16s and tanks you want. If 350 million people, or even half of that, were to stand together with just pitchforks, sledgehammers, bolt cutters, whatever they needed to get to you, it doesn't matter how many of those you have, you will get overrun. Just watch the movie World War Z. Now, I know that's a fictional movie, but if you put it into perspective and replace the zombies with people that have had enough, that's what it would be like defending. And we need to start thinking that way. Especially, I think, here pretty quickly, depending on how things go. Right? Because I can tell you what, any person I know, my cardiologist who's from Romania, another friend of mine who's from China in the early days when Mao was around, those kind of things. I know some Jewish friends whose grandparents told them, whatever you do, do not give up your freedom or your ability to defend it. Right? We need to really take that to heart. Even our recent friends in Australia will tell us, don't do it. It's not worth it. Right? And the only reason why maybe more people in the UK say that, although I know plenty of people in the UK that say they wish they could have guns like we do, and if we shouldn't give ours up, because if we do, we're in big trouble, is because they've just been without them and oppressed so long without those that they don't really remember what it was like to have firearms. That being said, if you look at what's going on even in their country right now, they'll tell you that crime isn't less. Violent crimes aren't less. People have just moved to stabbing people or beating them up with their hands and fists or using baseball bats. Right? Just watch the news over there. And there's a reason their cops run around with bright yellow stabbing vests on, is because criminals, no matter what, and we need to get this clear, even if they were to remove all guns, and they were, or try to at least, which is an impossible feat at this point, but even if they were to remove all firearms and make laws against big pointy knives and things like that, like they have in the UK. You can't have anything that's over a certain length, and you can't have anything that has really scary looking shapes and teeth on them and stuff like that, and words like zombie killer and things like that, even though they're usually, those things are garbage, and they're just more for looks and fun than anything else. But all of those kind of, it doesn't matter. People will just move to hatchets. And then what? You're going to say you can't have hatchets? What? We can't have, I mean, I would be so pissed if I couldn't have my big kitchen knife, right? You know, the one that's in every horror movie, but also is the best knife for preparing food in a lot of cases. They'll say you can't have those. And it won't matter, because then the only people that will be criminals in their eyes are the people who are trying to live a happy and law-abiding, and I say law-abiding uneasily, but in a in a liberty type of way where we don't want to hurt anybody else, but we just want to be left alone to do what we want to do as long as we're not affecting other people, right? Those will be the people to be looked at as criminals, and criminals will still be criminals, but they'll still have the items, right? Because they don't care. That's the whole point. Criminals, when they commit crimes, are usually committing crimes with guns and knives and bats and things that they got illegally in the first place. And not to mention that they're using them illegally, right? Now, I will say this. Where I say we need to all start coming together is if we sat down and talked about it calmly, we could educate each other, right? Because I do believe that we could get the left to see that this isn't a tool issue. Because what if tomorrow we all decided to take up hammers and there was mass hammerings around the United States that started popping up, right? It's not, what are they going to do, take away hammers? Right? More people are killed in distracted driving every year, usually youth, but distracted driving in a vehicle. Far more than anybody has been killed with firearms all added together. Pistols, rifles, whatever. Now, and especially if you took out the things like self-inflicted or accidental or self-defense, because those really shouldn't be added in, because those they're not from violence towards another, right? So that being said, if we took all those things, it's still this is gonna ramp up. But you're not going to get rid of hammers. You're not going to get rid of, I mean, why aren't they making as big a deal at getting rid of cars and cell phones? Well, because there's money in cars and cell phones. And they can't do anything that will infringe upon their pocketbooks. That's just absurd. But it's not absurd to get rid of these, right? Because they're not invested in those businesses. They don't want to admit to this. And if we sat down and talked to each other, maybe we could admit to each other that these also serve a purpose in making the problem better. Right? When we start looking at things like the crime rates and stuff like that are more in the urban cities, but also more so in areas that are, say, sanctuaries for no guns, meaning gun-free zones and states that have harsh gun laws and things like that. That in itself should show, and if we could just sit down and look at real facts with each other, and also on the right being able to admit that I mean, I don't think you'll find anybody on the right that will disagree with this, but it is a tragedy and it is awful, and kids should never die at the hands of somebody doing violence with a firearm against an innocent child or an innocent person or innocent people anywhere. Because that's no different than Hamas or any of those places that are blowing up soccer fields and schools and things like that, right? And that is a great crossover to start talking with each other about. Those kind of things are all mental issues. Whether it be mental because there's something wrong upstairs, or mental because it is a difference in religions that is radical, right? And I'm not talking about Islamists. Should we go out and hate all Islamic people or Buddhists if that's what they do in China and whatnot? Of course not. That makes you no different than Hitler, and it makes them no different than Hitler. Just ask the Christians in China, right? That they put on trains and drive away places to get re-educated or worse. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is if we all sat down and looked, we would all see that we all agree on the important things. Freedom, rights, everybody has the ability to be happy, to be left alone, to be their privacy be respected. It's all written in our Constitution and its amendments, right? All of those things are what usually everybody wants. It's the ability to be able to live in peace and happiness with each other. And I have no doubt that I could take and find in a neighborhood strangers of all different types, race, religion, and everything, people I don't know, and bring them here to this table and cook them a meal, and we could all sit down and actually enjoy each other's companies, ideas, thoughts. And I'd be willing to bet you in that group of people we would have a difference of religious ideals, gun idea, 2A ideals, ideals in how to raise kids and everything like that. But in the end, I think we would all agree that what we would want is the ability to sit around and be able to talk about these things, and in the end, actually enjoy each other. And say, hey, what we really need is for the corrupt, greedy, immoral people that we've allowed in control to leave and let us have our world back, our countries back, right? But it's not going to come easy, and there's no easy answer. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't seek the answer or always be working for ways to come together, because that's the one thing that they fear. They fear, in just our country alone, anywhere from 100 to 375, I think it is now, million people saying we've had enough. Right? And I know we can all get together and agree to enough that the things we disagree on, we can all respect that is their right to have those beliefs and live the way they want to, as long as they don't force me to not be able to value and live the way that I want to, as long as I don't directly harm or affect them. It's that simple. Even if we get on the topic of, say, like the hot bubble of topic besides 2A is abortion. Look, I don't agree with it. I think every life should have a chance. I do have the ability to say I can see where in certain cases, but very, very few certain cases, and not after trying your best to find another solution. But there are situations where it may not be okay for, where abortion may be excusable. Right? And I think that they can see why we feel that life is so valuable. And with that, I think we could find creative solutions to solve all of those problems without having to go to abortion, but realizing that sometimes that may be. And if we can respect those kind of things, well then I think we could respect each other. And we could have what we all want, which is, let's just give it a goofy term, a utopia of peace, right? Or like some people like to say, because they don't have the ability or the intellect to think further than their toes, further in front of them than their toes, what do they call it? Snowflakes or lovey-kissy, hug-a-buddy bullshit, right? That doesn't help. That just divides, right? Because in the end, why wouldn't you want to be able to live in a community where the biggest challenge in your day is getting up and making a living and supporting yourself, which we all have the right to do, feeding ourselves, putting shelter over our heads, right? Keeping ourselves cool when it's hot and hot when it's cold, right? I mean, I think we really need to get back to the important things. I think all of us could simplify, myself included, by all means, by getting simplified, downsizing, and being happy with just being alive and enjoying my family, my friends, and the people around us, right? Because I can guarantee you that a majority of the people, even the ones that fight, the left and the right, fight, all just want to get up in the morning and have a great day. And they want others to have a great day. We all need to start sitting down and talking together with each other. And we all need to start respecting each other's differences. Even if we're talking about race, right? I think the only reason why racism is even still around anymore is because they keep bringing it up. Because they keep igniting it and whatnot. And I'm not going to say that there aren't some legitimate issues with race and travesties that are happening still. But if we worked together, think about how much more powerful that would be if every race, when there was a tragedy because it was the loss of a person or harm to a person, got together and said, this is not acceptable. And if they saw us all getting along and united under the travesty that was against the travesty that was happened, whether it's shooting of a white girl or shooting of a black boy or anything like that, right? But they saw us all out there standing against it, demanding justice, they'd be worried. And I think the people that they hire to enforce, or I should say, they probably hire them to protect them against united people. I think they would also say, you know what? They're right. And I think we're actually seeing that. I've seen it out there. I know in my community, when BLM and Antifa were here and they burnt down 2,800 homes, cops didn't chase us off when we got our vests on and went out there geared up, ready to protect our community and our businesses and whatnot like that against people that meant it harm. Yet we meant no harm to the people that were protesting. We understood why some of them were upset, but we also understood that there was a bus full of instigators that were only there for one reason, because they were paid to keep people divided and organize them into fighting each other, destroying things, instigate them to do things that say cross a line we all know that shouldn't be crossed. Because in a lot of those cases, the rioters are burning down businesses and buildings and harming people of their own races, or that did nothing or even agreed with them. The solution is simple. And it lies with us. And when we all start acting like that, we'll move ahead. Now, enough of that garbage. I'm going to do another video just because this one drug on. But, as you can see, we've got another project that rolled in the door. The Ruger S-FAR, right? In 308. This is the, if you've heard it talked about, it's the lightweight 308 battle style rifle. Finally got it off layaway, and we're going to dress it up. So stay tuned. Till next time, stay safe, be secure, get out there and meet new people, right? But always be armed or carrying, right? Stay dangerous. Be watching around your surroundings, because right now there's some weird stuff happening. And be getting ready and prepared for anything that may come our way. Adios and aloha.